Good morning, everyone, and welcome into Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we've got some football to talk about today. Today, we're going to talk about some of the developing rumors and stuff going on with this Brandon Aiyuk situation. As we know, this has been one of the things that's been developing all offseason long that we continue to talk about. Well, we've had a couple more updates this week. So why don't we just kind of go ahead and do another all-inclusive episode of kind of what we know is going on with this situation in San Francisco surrounding their star wide receiver. So go ahead, take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, welcome in, everyone. Happy to see you all in the chat box. Scrap Iron, Dakota, Jamie, Dustin, to the house. Go. Welcome in, everyone. Glad to see you all. And, thanks for tuning in. If you're also listening to the podcast or tuning in from some of the other channels not named YouTube, thank you as well. Let's get rocking. Brandon Aiyuk, what the hell is going on? Guys, every year, right? Every year we have some drama that we have to develop and discuss and figure out what the hell is going on. This year, we're going with Brandon Aiyuk. And it's interesting because I feel like this situation in general just keeps revolving around the San Francisco 49ers. Last year on the defensive side of the ball, they, of course, had their Bosa holdout. The year before, we had the whole Deebo Samuel holdout where, we thought he was going to be going to Miami. Actually, that was last year, too. So it doesn't even so the 49ers are kind of having this issue of just waiting forever to pay their players. And on Monday, it was reported by Ryan Clark on ESPN's NFL Live that Brandon Aiyuk had requested a meeting with the San Francisco 49ers front office and head coach. Basically, that is what happened, a meeting that he requested in San Francisco with really all the top brass of San Francisco. We still have no idea how that meeting went, but we do know some other interesting things about that Ryan Clark stuff. Ryan Clark said that before he was told that by Brandon Aiyuk, it was in person. He came over on their show or something like that. And Brandon Aiyuk actually arrived with Jaden Daniels in tow. And that's kind of what has bubbled up some even more hype around this situation, as we already know from a few weeks back that there was the whole TikTok thing where Brandon Aiyuk was FaceTiming Jaden Daniels and had said, the 49ers said they don't want me anymore or whatever. And now we have this meeting to where it sounds like the 49ers do want Brandon Aiyuk, or Brandon Aiyuk wants to be with the 49ers. The quote itself from Ryan Clark, that we do know, is that Brandon Aiyuk's first choice is to stay in San Francisco, but he said he's comfortable playing elsewhere if they are willing to trade him. So that leads us to, all right, what teams are going to be trading for Brandon Aiyuk, if that's even possible? What is the market even saying? Yada, yada, yada. Well, the big front runner, as mentioned with the whole Jaden Daniels hype that's been bubbling up the last few weeks, is now the Commanders as the big front runners for this thing. If Brandon Aiyuk is to be traded, I would be shocked if it's not the Commanders, to be completely honest with you. I know that I have the Steelers on this thumbnail, but they don't necessarily have the cap space or really the resources to get this done, at least in the way the Commanders do. So the Commanders already have a ton of connections with Brandon Aiyuk. Brandon Aiyuk and Jaden Daniels played together at Arizona State, and the new Commanders GM, Adam Peters, was the assistant general manager for the 49ers the last 3 years, and before that was just working on the team, has been with the 49ers for 7 years. So he, knows Brandon Aiyuk, was probably a big part of even drafting the player. So it makes sense for him to want to bring him back. The big thing that's awesome here for the Commanders is that they actually have $37 million in cap space right now and $71 million in cap space in 2025. With Jaden Daniels being on his rookie contract, with Terry McLaurin kind of on his way out, with so many young players being brought in now, Jahan Dotson on his rookie contract, Luke McCaffrey is going to be on his rookie contract, right? Brian Robinson still on his rookie contract. They brought in Austin Eckler for cheap, Ben Sinnott on his rookie contract. Basically a piss poor defense, at least when it comes to the personnel. So they've just got so much money to go around in Washington that bringing in Brandon Aiyuk does make sense. But supposedly the negotiations between the 49ers and the Commanders have kind of halted. Now, they had discussed this actually heading into the draft, but there are also some rumors that they had been discussing it as of late as well. And the Commanders are just not reaching the 49ers price tag, what they're looking for Brandon Aiyuk. reportedly, the 49ers are looking for, basically a wide receiver one type of haul. They want at least a first round pick and probably a little bit more on top of that. But then on the flip side, the contract they're offering Brandon Aiyuk, at least some reports, is that they're really valuing him as more of a high-end wide receiver too, which is also totally fair. It's interesting because we also have developments from a couple weeks ago where Brandon Aiyuk was offered a hefty contract by the San Francisco 49ers. Reportedly, from NBC Sports Bay Area, Michael Silver of the San Francisco Chronicle said that the most recent offer from the 49ers to Brandon Aiyuk was in the range of $26 million per year, which would make him the 8th highest paid wide receiver in the league, right behind Devontae Smith, or right in between, actually, Devontae Smith and Cooper Kupp. He'd be making more than Devontae Smith, but a little bit less than Cooper Kupp, which is still a ton of money. And if we remember from a few weeks back as well, Brandon Aiyuk was saying that he wants Amon-Ra St. Brown money, which is around $28 million a year. So if he was offered $26 million a year, really, what are we doing here, Brandon? For real. Like, just sign the contract. Like, I know that at the end of the day, yes, that's $8 million that you could potentially be missing out on. But you already know, and we all know, that. Sorry, didn't realize I didn't do the regular good morning. Sorry about that. Got distracted in the chat. But we all know that making millions of dollars is awesome. And we also know that the wide receiver market is a ton of money. And we also know that Brandon Aiyuk is a good wide receiver. So to be offered $26 million a year and to be the 8th highest paid wide receiver in the league is nothing to scoff at for Brandon Aiyuk. Really at all. And I'm honestly surprised he hasn't taken it. I guess he's trying to maybe milk out a little bit more. And that's kind of what is leading me to believe personally that if there is any, major development here, or if it were to be resolved, I guess I should say, that Aiyuk is probably, just really doing all this for negotiation. And as annoying as he is being, that he's probably just going to eventually sign that contract that the 49ers have offered. Or we can go another step further. So if he is to just sign that contract, just give up, that's one scenario here, right? Just go ahead and sign that contract after a holdout, maybe right before training camp starts. Go ahead and take this month off, use this time to continue using social media to your advantage, if you could say that, if you could even say that it's to his advantage. I really don't know. I'm not going to lie. This whole to me, I don't like him bringing Jaden Daniels into this situation. I really don't. Just because he's a rookie quarterback, he's really got to be focused and putting his head in the game. And here you are just distracting him with your own bullshit. Like, come on, man. I would get it if you were doing it maybe with another teammate that was holding out or whatever. But this is a whole nother team that you're talking about, a whole nother player and a young player that you're friends with. And you're kind of distracting him. Taking him out of all the hard work that he needs to be putting in right now and making him just kind of be this negotiation piece. I don't know. I don't like it. I find it a little off-putting, to be completely honest with you. And this whole situation in general has made me just kind of get a sour taste in my mouth around Brandon Aiyuk. I feel like he's being a little immature with the way he's handling this whole thing. But I get it too. At the end of the day, I mean, he's coming off a season, right, where he only had 75 receptions, but took that for 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns. I mean, that is incredible efficiency. He was a really big part of the San Francisco 49ers success. So he obviously values himself highly and values himself as one of the top wide receivers in the league. And I guess he values himself as at least top 5 in the league if he doesn't want the 8th highest contract in the league. And so he could bet on himself. That's another option here, right? So one path, the most probable path, even, I'll just say, is that Brandon Aiyuk just keeps being weird this next few months, right? Or month, really. And then inevitably signs whatever contract the 49ers have offered him, shows up for training camp, plays football. I think that's the most likely situation. That's what we saw from Bosa. That's what we saw from Debo. That's just what we know, right? But he could also, if he really wants, just play on his rookie contract this year. If he really wants, he could just play on his rookie contract this year, the $14 million that he was offered or whatever. And then next year, play on the franchise tag, which would roughly be about $30 million, because that takes the top 5 salaries of his position and averages it. So if he feels like he's top 5, maybe bet on yourself and take the franchise tag in the 2025 season after this year and just kind of play out what you have. Now, the reason that might work too is the 49ers right now have $31 million in cap space, but next year are going to be $38 million over. So they definitely need to clear some room next year, which leads me to Deebo Samuel. We talked about this a little bit ago when it was, oh, is Deebo going to get traded or is Brandon going to get traded? And I talked about, I feel like if Deebo Samuel is going to be traded, it's not going to be until after this season. And I still 100% believe that. However, I am even now coming around to almost accepting that Deebo Samuel will be traded by the 49ers after this season, which is another reason why I'm kind of believing that Brandon Aiyuk will stay on the Niners this year. The 49ers, after the 2024 season, have an out on Deebo Samuel's contract for only $15 million in dead cap. Or they could, of course, just, stay on the contract and try to trade him a la Stephon Diggs this year with the Bills. But either way, it sounds like the 49ers needs cap space next year. They're $38 million over already. They need to figure out what to do with Brandon Aiyuk. And they also need to figure out what to do with Brock Purdy. And so I think that another option here is that they, again, extend Brandon Aiyuk, whatever, and then trade Deebo Samuel next season, which is probable, the most likely. That's still where my head's at, is Brandon Aiyuk. Everyone really, the San Francisco 49ers, keep the band together for this season, move on from Deebo next year, and that's when Ricky Pearsall or Jacob Cowing will be able to take that step forward. The next most likely option is that Brandon Aiyuk maybe bets on himself and just maybe accepts a franchise tag going into 2025, since that would be worth a ton of money. But then also, there is that Commanders trade rumor that I mentioned as well. He has the connections with Jaden Daniels. He has the connections with the general manager, Adam Peters. The Commanders have the cap space. The Commanders have the draft capital. And arguably, the Commanders could, if they wanted to, they could maybe figure out a Jahan Dotson plus type trade for Brandon Aiyuk. That's another first-round draft capital wide receiver that, is young on a cheaper contract that the 49ers could be interested in as well. So I think those are the three most likely options in order, even, really. Brandon Aiyuk just gets the extension with the Niners, and then they trade Deebo Samuel next year to free up some cap space. The second most likely option is that he bets on himself. He just takes whatever, is on the table right now, signs the tender, then gets franchise tagged next year. And that's fine, right? $30 million bucks or so, whatever, top 5 salary. Or, he gets traded to the Commanders. There's a fourth sneaky option as well. If you guys remember, heading into the draft, the Steelers were in on Brandon Aiyuk as well. The Steelers don't have a lot of cap space this season, though, and that's where I think it might be tough for them to pull it off. Right now, they only have $15 million in cap space, but in 2025, they do have $77 million. So they could work out an extension with Brandon Aiyuk where it's like cheaper this year, backloaded for the rest of his contract. They have an extra 5th-round pick this year as well coming up in the draft, so they could package that along with a first or maybe even one of their players. So while they don't have a lot of cap space this year, they do next year and beyond. They could use a wide receiver like Brandon Aiyuk. I don't like it. In fact, I think with them drafting Roman Wilson, they're probably not really exploring this anymore. But I just wanted to bring that back up, as the Steelers were interested in Brandon Aiyuk heading into the draft when the rumors kind of first started circulating. But I guess to kind of sum up all the updates that we have right now with Brandon Aiyuk from this week, he had a meeting with the 49ers on Monday. We still don't necessarily know how that went. And he brought Jaden Daniels to like an ESPN interview with Ryan Clark to tell Ryan Clark that he's about to have the meeting with the 49ers. That's how he got that information. There was a little bit of an Instagram thing after that. Brandon Aiyuk yesterday on Instagram replied to an Instagram post talking about the Commanders 49ers trade rumors. And he said, and I quote, "But I thought the 49ers were never trying to trade me." So it sounds like Brandon Aiyuk doesn't even think that they're going to try to trade him, according to that comment as well. We also have the updates that he was offered a $26 million a year contract that would make him the 8th highest paid wide receiver in the league, which is plenty of money and a totally respectable contract for a player like Brandon Aiyuk. So that's kind of it in terms of the updates, right? That's everything that's gone on. That's everything we know right now. The Jason take is still that Brandon Aiyuk is probably going to cave and eventually sign an extension with the 49ers. I don't think that they are going to be able to get the draft capital that they want to move on from him. And really, as it stands, Brandon Aiyuk is still technically under contract. Like, he's still technically on the 49ers, as upset as that makes him. So really, the 49ers have all the leverage in the situation. So I still think that him returning to San Francisco is the most likely situation. and maybe we have a shakeup the following year with Deebo Samuel moving on. But also he could just, maybe aim for a franchise tag with no extension and maybe try to earn some money and test the open market after 2025. Or, he is traded. And I think if he is traded at this point, it would be the Commanders. They have the cap space this year. They have the cap space next year. They have the connections with him as well. So I think that's going to be the team to keep our eye on for sure. But as we see a lot of these times with these holdouts and everything like that, normally they just return to the team that they were on, especially a player like Brandon Aiyuk, who, yes, was really good, but all the arguments are going to be out there, a product of the San Francisco 49ers system. Oh, there's so many weapons there. Defenses can't key in on him. Will he actually be that good as a focal point wide receiver one of an offense? Like, all those questions are still incredibly valid, even if he had an incredible season last year. So Brandon Aiyuk, kind of wish him the best in this situation. Still kind of getting a little bit of annoyed of how he's handling it, but it will be situated soon. I think, well, maybe not soon, within the month. In fact, not within the month, in a month. I think it'll happen in July, right when the 49ers camp is expected to take off. I think that's when he's finally just going to put the pen to paper and sign that thing. Now, he isn't subject to fines because he's still technically under the rookie contract. So he doesn't technically, that's why he was able to hold out. Like, he's fine. But, I think he'll be there. I think in a month, he's going to sign that extension and be with the San Francisco 49ers. But we still have a month, until that has to happen. We'll have a month of developments. We'll have a ton of rumors and everything. Every year it seems like, oh, this star player is going to get traded, and then they're not. So we'll see. That's what we know right now. That's where my head's at. Let me know in the comments where you guys are at on this situation. Is he going to get traded? Is he returning to San Francisco? Let me know. I'm going to hop into the chat now, see if we have any questions. I know I got distracted a few times looking at you guys. You guys were popping off this morning. Dakota says that he likes these single-player episodes in the offseason. Yeah, I feel like it's nice to do a couple short ones here and there if we can. Let's see. So I guess I can't believe I didn't say good morning this morning. I'm sorry, everyone. I really am. We'll say good morning, everyone. There we go. A little late, but yeah, sorry about that. Thank you for wishing me a better day. Just a little tired this morning. Just a little tired. I did see and get distracted by Ryan Flournoy's name. I'm not going to lie. Yes, the Brandon Aiyuk needs the 49ers more than the 49ers need him. I do agree there. But to me, it is seeming like the 49ers have a whole philosophy shift. And it seems that Deebo Samuel is not necessarily a part of the San Francisco 49ers philosophy fit or change for the future. It seems that they want a lot of good route running wide receivers. So I think Brandon Aiyuk is a good one for that. And I think Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing are good ones for that as well. And Deebo Samuel, yes, they like those screens that he houses all the time. He's an incredible player. But he's not necessarily the type of wide receiver that the team needs right now, especially with Christian McCaffrey, right? I think Deebo Samuel's kind of a redundancy in San Francisco as much as I like him, whereas Brandon Aiyuk, it is probably a product of San Francisco. I'll go ahead and say it. I do believe that. But I still think that they kind of need each other, right? I mean, he's still a really good wide receiver. Let's see. Isn't Darnell Mooney getting paid more than Aiyuk? Yes, technically, but I don't think that'll last long. If you put Scary Terry on the Niners, he'd put up similar numbers. Yeah, I agree. I think, again, Brandon Aiyuk, a very talented wide receiver. I think he's really solid. He has a lot of great underlying metrics. He just had a 1,300-yard season off of only 75 receptions. Incredible efficiency. But I also think a lot of that is part of the San Francisco offense. I think a lot of that is the weapons that are on the team. A lot of it's game, plans and everything. So we'll see. I don't necessarily want to buy into Brandon Aiyuk as a wide receiver one on another team. I think he would be too expensive in fantasy. In fact, as you guys know, my take on Brandon Aiyuk right now for Dynasty is I am still selling him either way, right? Even if he stays in San Francisco, I'm selling him. I don't really like the prospects of him there, at least at his current value. And I also don't like the prospects of him as a wide receiver one on a team. I just don't know if he really is that type of receiver yet. And with the wide receiver position in Dynasty being as deep as it is, I don't mind just trying to take Brandon Aiyuk and tearing down to maybe a JSN and seeing what type of plus you could get, or staying in the win now receivers, right? And maybe, or not staying, but just with a win now receiver, see if you can get a Stephon Diggs or Cooper Kupp or Devontae Adams with a young running back or something. There's just so many options that I think you can get a really good return for Brandon Aiyuk without having to, take on the risk whether it be he's back in San Francisco in a crowded wide receiver room, or he is a wide receiver one somewhere. But what does that mean for volume? What does that mean for productivity, efficiency? Like all those questions will still remain to where he's a top 16 wide receiver right now. And he could be worse. And I don't think he could really be much better. So anyway, that's my take on the Brandon Aiyuk situation. You guys have a wonderful Wednesday and a fantastic rest of your week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you follow me on social media at JFootballLine. Follow Player Profiler everywhere. Hit that like button and subscribe to Player Profiler and Player Profiler News. You all, again, have a wonderful Wednesday and a fantastic rest of the week. Peace.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you, allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.